There is a law in New York State, as there is in all but 4 states in the country, against sodomy.
6 now.
6 now. Okay, and actually the sodomy law discriminates against heterosexuals as well as homosexuals, because the government actually states that it can tell you how to have sex, and that's only in the missionary position with the man on top. So that according to the sodomy law, you're breaking the sodomy law if you commit fellatio or have any kind of sexual experience, even with the person you're married to. But unfortunately, this law is almost exclusively used for homosexuals, and there are several thousand people around the country, at least, who are caught on charges of sodomy every year.
Shlomo Ashkinazy, just to give you a few credentials, owns 2 restaurants in the village. He's a member of the community planning board in the village. What number community planning
Community board 2.
Community board 2. He has served as the executive director of the youth task force for Andrew Stein, borough president of Manhattan. And he had a rather appalling encounter with the police not too long ago, and I want you to tell us about it.
Yes, this was exactly a year ago, last summer. I was participating in a demonstration in the gay community against the film Cruising. And it began as a very typical night. I've been on many demonstrations going way back to the anti-war demonstrations, and I've been active for a long time in the gay community. And I certainly wasn't expecting anything to go wrong. And I was there as a marshal, making sure that the demonstration stayed as peaceful as possible, and had said hello that night to many of the policemen from the 6th Precinct who I know from my work on the community board. I was isolated in an area for a while that was away from everybody, and my path was blocked by a policeman who assumed a posture like a football tackler. And so I decided not to cross his path, and I turned back in the opposite direction, and there was another policeman there. And they started to close in on me, and so I decided, well, you know, the worst that will happen is they'll arrest me, but nothing more than that. I wasn't afraid. And I lifted my hands to show I was offering no resistance, which I didn't. I offered no resistance. So I was very surprised when they pulled me over to a parked car nearby and forced me down backwards on my back. And before I knew it, there were 6 policemen standing over me, clubbing me and kicking me, stepping on me.
Saying things to you, Stephen?
I don't even remember. I don't remember. I remember forcing myself not to struggle, because my training has taught me that if you offer no resistance, you're less likely to get hurt. But it finally got to the point, one of them had his hand over my mouth and nose to suffocate me, and another one was digging his club straight down into my stomach. And then I was scared. Then I thought that this is it. I'm going to die. Steve, take a last look at the world around you. This is the last thing you're ever going to see.
Not a bad point. Steve Ashkinazy joins us, Director of Clinical Programs for the Institute for Protection of Lesbian and Gay Youth. It's your organization, in cooperation with the City of New York, established this school.
We established a school, and I have to say that I think it's an unfortunate thing that there needs to be such a school. I would rather there not be a need. I don't think that segregated schools are a good idea either. At the Institute, where we counsel young people who are lesbian and gay with all sorts of problems, we saw the need continually. We saw young people who were coming to us who had dropped out of school, been discharged from schools, pushed out of schools because they were being humiliated, they were being beaten up. They had such a terrible time in school that the whole idea of going to school just turned them off. Then you have that other element that is more vocal about it, and they just drop out.
Right.
You can't counsel people in the regular school systems if they've already dropped out.
Mr. Ashkinazy, you wear a yarmulke. Are you an Orthodox Jew?
I'm an Orthodox Jew.
And how are you doing in the synagogue with this?
Well, I had a lot of support within the Orthodox community. I certainly know many Orthodox Jews who are gay, most of whom are not as open about it as I am. But many of them are really happy that I'm doing it and feel that their life will be a little bit better because I am. And I will say that as far as, being accused of being sinning, a sin is something that a person has to choose to do or not to do. Being homosexual is not a choice, and therefore I think that a person has to address their religious beliefs with the best of intentions, make a great effort. I believe in the Bible, and I think it's a great blueprint for how we can perfect our lives, but I have yet to meet a person ever who lived entirely 100% in agreement with every biblical command.
For the homosexual adolescents, the experience can be especially traumatic. Steve Ashkinazy is the clinical director to the Institute for the Protection of Gay and Lesbian Youth in New York City. It operates an alternative school known as the Harvey Milk High School. It's designed for gay youngsters with special problems. And it's nice to have you with us.
Good morning.
I'd like us to start out, because you grew up as a gay person. What is it like for a young teen to be dealing with this?
It's so difficult. That's why I really understand and why I enjoy the work that I do now. I knew that I was gay from the time I was 12, and by the time I was 14, the need to go out and meet other people like myself was so great that I left all of the support systems I knew without telling my family or my friends in school. I needed to go places, and the only places that were available were bars, were very, degenerate types of areas, which I would not recommend for any youngster. But the need was so great that I had to seek them. What's difficult for a young person coming out and realizing that they're gay is that they have not had any preparation. I mean, they might know that they're Jewish or Catholic or black or from Brooklyn or whatever, but suddenly they discover that they're also part of a culture that they've never met. In fact, in most cases, all of the support systems, their family, their church, their friends, their school, probably have given them messages that this is a very bad thing to be, that this is sinful, it's sick, it's immoral.
What do you say to the parents out there?
Okay, there's a number of messages I have for parents. One, if you know that your son or your daughter is gay, don't feel guilty about it. It's nothing that you did. Society puts a lot of pressure on parents, making them think that they must have done something wrong in raising their kids, and that sometimes leads to, the guilt sometimes leads to them throwing the kids out or being violent or angry with them. But there's another message too, because this issue affects so many more people than realize it. I have heard so many stories from parents who wonder why their children aren't closer to them, why they move to cities far away, why they don't come home for the holidays. And many of them wonder why their kids aren't closer to them and don't even know that the reason is because their sons or daughters are gay and are afraid that if they come home, they might have to talk about it, and are afraid to face their parents and say that because they think that they might be rejected. One of the reasons that our agency has come into existence is because what we've seen is that, lesbian and gay teenagers are under, extreme pressure. They have the double problem that a lot of professionals in the agencies don't know how to deal with lesbian and gay youth. And one of the things we do besides working directly with the kids is we go out and we train the agency. And we go in and we run regular on-site, in-service professional training for the staff, and it's really improved the situation. Because what we've found is that wherever you go, is that the staff and other agencies, you have professional people, social workers who have never ever sat through a workshop or a conference dealing with the issue of homosexuality.
Estimates 40 to 50% of those young people are lesbian and gay and homeless. Up until now, nothing has been done for them in terms of housing. There has been no special housing for lesbian and gay youth. Steve Ashkinazy, who was a longtime gay activist, has decided to change that with something called Madrigal House. What's Madrigal House going to be and do?
Well, Madrigal House is a small attempt to finally provide some program that will provide housing for lesbian and gay youth. There have been many attempts over the last dozen years at least to get the city and the state to provide some group home or shelter for lesbian and gay youth. Promises has been broken, so I finally decided you can't sit back and wait for other people to do it. You have to go out and do it yourself.
So, Madrigal House will
provide a space for 12 young people to live in a very home-like environment. It's kind of like a community residence where people will be able to live there, go to school. They'll have social services to help them get into vocational training so that if they can stay there for a year or 2 years.
Steve Ashkinazy, you've been at this a long time. You were back there in the original days of Gay Activists Alliance. You helped found the National Gay Task Force. You founded the Harvey Milk School and worked at the Hedrick Martin Institute for 8 years. And you're at it again.
I've been at a lot of beginnings, and I'm still here, a Jurassic gay activist. In my professional life as a social worker, I've gone around the country doing a lot of trainings and participating in workshops and panels, and most of which have nothing to do with being
frum, or nothing to do with, Judaism at all, just about gay community issues. But I always wear a yarmulke. And so at so many conferences I've been approached by people who will come up to me and really be just surprised to look at me and say, are you gay? And I said, yes, that's why I'm here. And they say, but you're Orthodox. And I say, yes. And then they say, I used to be Orthodox. I grew up Orthodox. But when I came out, I had to give up being Orthodox. And I said, well, why? And it's like, it never occurred to them. They even questioned that. It just seemed like you can't be one or the other. But it made me very sad when I realized that, and I would never have known that these, if these people didn't approach me, and they only approached me because I was wearing a yarmulke. But, I've been so many places, and people, people come up to me and tell me that they left, Orthodoxy because of being gay. I think that's very sad.
I came out in 1963 when I was just 14, and I got active in the gay liberation movement at 20. So for several years at meetings, I was always the youngest person in the room. So it's hard to believe that we are now approaching Stonewall 50, and that I will soon be 70, and now I am often the oldest person in the room. So tonight, I exercise my prerogative as an old-timer to give advice, which is this. Too many people today seem obsessed with comfort, their own and that of others, avoiding words and situations that may trigger discomfort. I believe the notion of being constantly comfortable is highly overrated. We need to be challenged if we want to grow. The challenges we overcome become the victories we celebrate. If you unfriend everybody that you disagree with, then you are no longer part of the conversation.